Alright, let's see what we're dealing with.
And you're right, this is a good discussion. All right. And here is the issue. Ted, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Is every American entitled, and I underlined that word, to health care as a right of being an American? Yes or no?
I'm glad you asked that. Right is a word you use a lot. Let's talk about what rights are. Rights mean you have a right for government not to mess with you, for government not to do things with you. If you look at the Bill of Rights, free speech means the government can't silence you when you're speaking. Religious liberty means the government can't control who you worship, what your faith is. The Second Amendment means the government can't take away your guns. Those are rights. What the Declaration of Independence said. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So what is a right? Is access to health care. What is a right is choosing your own doctor. And if you believe health care is a right, why on earth did you help write Obamacare that caused 6 million people to have their health insurance canceled, that had them lose their doctors, and have people like LaRonda who can't get health insurance, can't afford...
Oh, whatever, Ted. This is such bullshit. First off, I don't agree with the Affordable Care Act. I mean, I agree with some things, like making 80% of costs go to actual care. But, like, this guy, if Republicans like him had it his way, you would have 120 million people kicked off of Medicaid and Medicare. Not to mention all the other safety nets that they want to cut. But, I mean, come on, dude. You want to take people off of health care.
For a start,
You're denying her what you say is her right.
well, two things. You didn't answer the question, although I interpret your question to be that LaRonda does not have a right.
No, that's not what I said. What I said is
I heard
access
the
to
Bill of
health care.
Rights. I got the Bill of
health
Rights.
care is a right.
She has access, but you
And
don't have enough
choosing
money.
your doctor
Look,
is a
LaRonda,
right.
you have access right now. Go out and get a really great health insurance program. Oh, you can't do it because you can't afford it. All right? That's what he's saying. Access to what? You want to buy one of Donald Trump's mansions? You have access to do that as well. Oh, you can't afford $5 million for a house? Sorry. Access doesn't mean a damn thing. It's funny sometimes.
Yeah, listen. You can have access to whatever it is that you want and or need, especially when you need it. If you need it and you can't have access to it, then that's not really a right, is it? We say we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, we got 45,000 people dying a year from a lack of health care. So, by the Constitution standards, that's not legal. You shouldn't be able to kill somebody, take away their right to life, and then turn around and say that, oh, well, that's not a right. You can't have it. That's not how that works. It amazes me that people actually believe that profits mean more than people.
Trump's mansions, you have access to do that as well. Oh, you can't afford $5 million for a house? Sorry. Access doesn't mean a damn thing. It's funny, sometimes American journalists talk about how bad a country is because people are lining up for food. That's a good thing. In other countries, people don't line up for food. The rich get the food and the poor starve to death.
I don't get how that was quote unquote the worst of Bernie Sanders. I mean, he was right. He was right. I don't get it. That's definitely more worse than having the option to stand in line for food. That's for sure. So, I don't know. I'm just assuming this person who made this video is very, very biased. And I'm just basically critiquing why he's basically wrong on Bernie Sanders. Not saying that I agree with Bernie Sanders, let alone would vote for him, because I wouldn't. He demands for gun control. So, but yes, let's go. Oh God, I remember this.
Ask him.
If you do not listen to her, your event will be shut down right now.
It will be out. It will be out. Oh, one day when the war is won. We're going to let you on the mic. Okay. All right. So we are trying to be reasonable. We are trying to be reasonable.
We are trying.
We are trying. We're gonna give you. We're gonna let you on the mic. We are gonna give you the mic. Well, after Senator Sanders. After Senator Sanders. After Senator Sanders.
Literally, Bernie Sanders is on your side. All of his policies would literally support and help you. Yet here you are going to give this bullshit about... Like, I love how they interrupted his campaign to talk about Black Lives Matter when literally he was supporting Black Lives Matter and still does support Black Lives Matter. They wouldn't have pulled that shit at a Donald Trump rally, let me tell you that. But, you know how partisans work. But yeah, this probably was, I'll give it to this guy though, this probably was the worst of Bernie Sanders. I mean, but that really isn't saying much about him.
After Senator Sanders. All right. All right. We're shutting it down. You all are shutting it.
And you seem so like unhinged and radical and just like, who's gonna talk to you when you're like that? I wouldn't let you on if I was doing a campaign and you were doing that to me. Like, security, let's go. No, we don't do that.
You are disrupting this event. You are disrupting this event. We will. No, you are shutting it down. We are shutting it down.
Bernie acknowledged that 6.5 million Americans are paying Obamacare tax fines because they can't afford insurance. So they can't afford health insurance, and then the IRS comes in and fines them. And he says, gosh, I don't agree with that. And yet throughout the Democratic debate, Bernie says he helped write Obamacare that imposes these fines on people. I think it's wrong to be fining people. But let me make a broader point on taxes, which is many times in this debate, Bernie has talked about providing health care for free from the government. You know what? The simplest principle in economics is Tonstoffel. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. The liberal-leaning Urban Institute scored Bernie's health plan, concluded it would cost $2.5 trillion in the first year and $32 trillion over 10 years. Now, how much is that? Trillions is a big number. It's not clear what that is. Let me put it in perspective. All of the federal income taxes we pay today are about $1.5 trillion a year. $2.5 trillion means every one of us paying income taxes would have to about triple what you pay in income taxes to get an additional $2.5 trillion. Now, Bernie, no doubt, is going to come back and say, no. None of you are going to pay. Just the rich. Well, how about if we took every person that makes over $1 million a year and confiscated 100% of their income, took every penny that they make? That would raise only enough money to fund Bernie's plan for 5 months. Here's another idea. How about if the government confiscated the assets of Apple, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and ExxonMobil? If it came in, illegally seized those companies and sold them, that would pay for 1 year of Bernie's plan. If you don't want to see your tax triple, in addition to the wait list, in addition to the rationing, in addition to fewer MRIs and mammograms to worse care, then you don't want to see Bernie's Medicaid for all. You want to see cheap, affordable health care that you can choose that puts you in control.
cheap.
Took off on you on the stunt.
Okay, first off, so this guy in the video, he'd even, like, let Bernie respond. He just gave you Ted Cruz's talking points, his bullshit talking points, by the way. And it's just like, oh, makes sense. Not gonna let the viewers see what Bernie has to say about it. Okay, first off, the current system is like $2 trillion more than Bernie's plan, number one. Number two, you don't need to tax the rich up the ass to afford this. If we had to, then you would see, I'm trying to think, you would see your taxes raised, but you're getting rid of the private tax, which is the premiums and deductibles and the co-pays and what have you. So yeah, you're going to be paying more in taxes, but you're going to be saving money because beforehand you couldn't even afford healthcare. Okay? You couldn't afford it. The average American cannot afford healthcare. You just can't. Half Americans cannot afford healthcare, I should say. But not only would Bernie's plan be cheaper, not only would it be affordable, but it would be cheaper. So, we've done studies on this from Yale, from the University of Mass and Amherst, even from a Koch brothers funded study. They have all confirmed switching to Bernie's plan, having universal health care, would save us trillions of dollars over the next 10 years. So, that's just wrong.
Let's take a look.
He's going to tax you people at 90%. He's going to take everything.
90%?
And nobody's heard the term communist. But you know what? I call him a social communist, okay? Because that's what he is.
Just because... Oh, I think maybe he's going to respond.
You smiled when you heard that. What's your response?
Well, if I had to respond to every absurd thing that Donald Trump said, I'd spend my whole life doing it. But I do want to, you raised the issue of taxes. Trump raised that issue. Let's talk about it. What we have seen, George, in the last 30 years, as most Americans know, is a massive redistribution of wealth. Unfortunately, it's gone in the wrong direction. It's gone from the middle class and working families to Donald Trump and his friends, the top 0.1%. And yes, let me be very clear. If we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition-free, as I believe we have to do in the 21st century, yeah, we are going to have a tax on Wall Street speculation. Yes, we are going to ask Trump and his billionaire friends to pay more in taxes.
What rate?
Yes, we are going to end these. We'll come up with that rate, but it'll be a damn lot higher than it is right now. When you see the rich getting much, much richer, and in their effective tax rates, as Warren Buffett often reminds us, is lower than the effective tax rates of truck drivers and nurses. Yeah, the wealthy have got to pay more, and corporations,
You say
who in
it-
some cases make billions of dollars a year in taxes, billions of dollars in profits, don't pay a nickel in taxes. That has got to change.
You said a damn bit more. Previously, you'd been asked if a 90% marginal rate is certainly too high, and you said no. So how high are you willing to go on that top marginal rate? Are we talking 50%, 60%?
Well, we're working, George, this is what we are working on right now. We're going to end the loophole that allows large corporations to stash their money in the Cayman Islands and in some cases avoid paying all federal income taxes. We are going to raise the estate tax so that Trump and his billionaire friends and their families will end up paying more in taxes. We are going to have a tax on Wall Street speculation. Trillions of dollars have flowed class to the top 1%. And we have got to address the fact that the middle class in this country is disappearing. They need help. We have massive wealth and income inequality. The wealthy are going to have
But
to
to
pay
pay
more.
for all of your programs, you're going to have to do more than tax the top 1%. How far below the top 1% are you going to go with tax hikes?
It is not true that we have to go much further. I just indicated to you some of the proposals that we have. The proposals that we have to provide public colleges and universities tuition-free will be paid by a tax on Wall Street speculation, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, a huge need out there, and creating millions of decent jobs will be paid by doing away with the loophole that allows corporations to stash their money in the Cayman Islands tax-free. We have huge amounts of tax loopholes that exist for the wealthy and large corporations. We're going to address that issue and protect the needs
So no
of working
tax hikes
families and
below
the
the
middle
top
class.
1%? No tax hikes below the top 1%?
I didn't say that. I think if you're looking about guaranteeing paid family and medical leave, which virtually every other major country has, so that when a mom gives birth, she doesn't have to go back to work in 2 weeks. So there's an illness in a family, dad or mom can stay home with the kids. That will require a small increase in the payroll tax, as you well know.
And the funny thing is I don't know how this is the worst of Bernie Sanders. Literally, the Wall Street speculation tax, and if you ended fossil fuel subsidies, that would be more than enough to pay for free college, and could potentially be enough to pay for the family paid leave he was talking about. So, I don't get this video. I think this guy has just been in his echo chamber for so long and actually just sees that what Bernie is doing is just basically demolishing what they're saying. Like, all of these plans are affordable and cheaper. So, I don't get it.
Canada had for many years a conservative prime minister. The United Kingdom
Conservative
had
is
for many,
relative.
many years a conservative prime minister. I don't see those countries junking their healthcare systems, in which, by the way, poll after poll shows, not that they don't have problems. Of course they have problems. Every healthcare system in the world has problems. But I am not seeing those countries junking their universal healthcare system, which provide healthcare to all of their people at 1/2 the cost per capita that we do. I don't see conservative prime ministers doing that to go to the American healthcare system. Our system is wasteful, it is dysfunctional, it is incredibly bureaucratic. You talk about choice, you have people who have to argue with insurance companies for days before they can get the care that they need.
See, Bernie, you say wasteful, and I say people exercising free choice. You're right. We could cut costs here if we do like Europe and cut the number of MRIs, the number of mammograms. If we cut, you look at the elderly in much of Europe. The elderly here, when the elderly face life-threatening diseases, they're often treated in the intensive care unit. In Europe, they're often put in palliative care, essentially doped up with some drugs and said, well, now is your time to go.
Oh.
I don't expect the government to be saying that. And let me give, since you laughed at that, let's actually talk facts, because facts matter. So let's talk about, for example, a couple of stories from the United Kingdom. In Glasgow, Scotland, the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital was so overburdened this past January, it turned away 3 women who were in labor because they couldn't take care of them. In Worcester, England, a man was left on an ambulance gurney for 5 hours before his heart attack was diagnosed. And he waited 7 hours before he received a stent and angioplasty. In a hospital in Essex, doctors twice canceled a potential life-saving surgery for a patient with esophageal cancer because there were no free beds in the intensive care unit. One more example in Wales. An 82-year-old woman who had fallen waited 8 hours on the floor before an ambulance arrived. Her daughter sat beside her in the ordeal, described it as one of the longest nights of our life. This is what happened when government takes over healthcare. Every example on earth. The result is rationing and waiting periods, and you, the citizens, being told, no, you can't have the health care you want.
Okay. Anecdotals are not evidence. Do you guys understand? Anecdotals are not evidence. Because this guy, he can talk about the UK system all he wants and how bad it was. I can give you 45,000 anecdotals of people dying from a lack of healthcare coverage. And he talks about free choice. You don't have a choice unless you have capital. That's how this system works. You do not have a right to life or liberty unless you have capital. Free choice means nothing if you don't have capital. All that means is you have the choice to these expensive healthcare plans that you're not going to have access to. And that the only choice you have is to die. Okay? And some of the best healthcare systems in the world are universal healthcare, whether it's socialized or free market based. France was rated number 1. They give their people 70 to 80% funding for their healthcare costs. 70 to 80%. That's insane. Nobody dies there. Nobody waits there. And on top of that, he's trying to make it sound like every single emergency is going to be like let off or like not prioritized. He's talking about specific rare cases and trying to make it sound like if you get shot in England, then you have to come back tomorrow and be like, oh, you're number 20 in line, you have to wait till tomorrow. Like, that's not how that works. And the wait times they're talking about is for elective surgeries. That means not emergency surgeries, elective surgeries. So yes, every system has to ration care some way or another, whether private or public. But what he's not telling you is that as far as rating goes, as far as the data goes, universal healthcare is the best healthcare systems we have in the world.
And in America, we do rationing in a different way, Ted. The way we do rationing is, if you are very rich, you can get the best healthcare in the world, I believe, right here in the United States. We should be proud of that. But if you are working class, you're going to be having a very difficult time affording the outrageous cost of healthcare. That's what Melissa just told us a moment ago. Now, estimates different, but let's be clear about this. Every single year, tens of thousands of our fellow Americans die because they don't go to the doctor when they should. You gave some examples about the UK. Let me give you some examples. Here in the United States, I talk to doctors in Vermont, all over this country. And what they tell me, patients come into their offices very, very sick. And they say to the patients, why didn't you come in here a year ago when you felt your tumor, when you felt your problem, when you were sick? Why didn't you come in here? And people said, I didn't have any insurance. Or my deductible was so high, I couldn't go. We just heard that story a moment ago. And some of those people die, and others end up in the hospital at outrageous costs for illnesses that could have been treated initially at far less cost. So please don't tell me about rationing. This country has more rationing than any other industrialized country on earth, except the rationing is done by income.
My question is this. I'm a business owner, and we just keep getting kicked in the teeth by this administration. It's regulation after regulation and tax upon tax. What Donald Trump does understand is the complexities of business and, to reward the person who takes the risk. So really, my question is, this country was founded on entrepreneurship. Why is this administration so against the business owner? Please tell me.
I don't think this administration, the Obama administration you're referring to, is so against the business owners. When you talk about tax increases, Obama did. I don't know your income, and I'm not concerned about your income. Obama did raise taxes on the top. He raised taxes on the top 1 or 2%. And you know what? I would have gone further. I think the wealthiest people in this country are doing phenomenally well. 52% of all new income generated today goes to the top 1%. So you and I may have a difference. But yeah, I do believe that billionaires and multimillionaires should be paying more in taxes.
I'm a business owner. I'm not a multimillionaire. I'm not a billionaire. Okay? I mean, you haven't lived until you put a payroll on your credit card. This is the reality of the backbone of this country.
Well, the backbone of this country, I think we should support entrepreneurship. I think we should support small business. But I am not supportive of large multinational corporations that make billions a year in profit and don't pay a nickel in taxes. Nor am I supportive of those corporations who throw American workers out on the street and then move to China or to Mexico.
What about the small businesses?
I think we should be supportive.
Do you think there's space to work with Trump on that? He's talked a lot about getting rid of regulations.
Well, you can't say what does that mean? Should a small business or a large business be able to pollute the water or the air or the food? No. I hope you don't believe that.
I don't pollute air. I don't pollute water. I don't pollute food. However, when these rules and regulations come in to cover all of business, and you're trying to start a business, it's tough enough in the
Jim,
economy.
I think we should take a look at it, but it's, the devil is in the details. We got to see what those regulations are. Some of them, by the way, may not all. It's very easy to blame Barack Obama for everything, by the way. Some of those regulations may be state, maybe they're local. I don't know exactly the federal regulations.
But you're saying you're open to looking
at it. Of course, look, if there's a regulation that doesn't make any sense, why do you keep it? All right? But some of them, if you're talking about, you have some folks out there who really want the freedom to pollute our air or to pollute our water. They want to get rid of those regulations. I don't agree. Don't agree.
Yeah, well, Bernie kind of messed up on that one because what he should have said was he's for taking care of small businesses, which, I mean, I know I would have said that, but what a lot of progressives like Sanders is going after are the big businesses and corporations, especially the ones that are lobbying Congress and getting tax loopholes and whatnot. Like small businesses, I think if there's not a regulation that makes sense, we shouldn't have it. But there's this misconception that people who are for regulations are they just want massive amounts of regulations and high taxes and what have you, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, there are just too many people on the left that rely too much on big daddy government. I'll give you that. But when we're talking about small businesses, I think those people should deserve fair competition. They deserve fair competition. Every business and corporation, all of them should be having the same rules inside the market. That's how it should go. So, I mean, I think Bernie should have, clarified on that one, unless I'm wrong about how Bernie feels on it. But minus the living wage, I mean, I can't really think of many regulations that I want to be put on there, minus, the essentials like OSHA and, making sure that there are safety guards on factory machines and, just making sure the environment is safe. But other than that, I mean, we can talk about what regulations work and what regulations don't. But I mean, other than that, this video was clearly biased. Whoever made this video, they're in their own echo chamber, and I guess they just assumed that Bernie Sanders was just getting owned. So, I don't know. This wasn't the best critique video that I've seen. So, capitalism is a dirty business, man. It truly is. I'll never understand why people go so hard in defending it. Probably because they've just been indoctrinated by it and just truly believe that it's the only system, and that poverty and hunger and homelessness, that's just part of the system. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's part of any system, I guess you could say, but do you really want a system that prioritizes profits over humanity? I don't think so. I think we should try and get rid of any unnecessary ills within society as much as humanly possible. And a system that prioritizes profit and has goods and services only to create profit, we're never going to see that. Capitalism is only for profit. It has never been to liberate people economically or individually, just to make profit.